you have some clarification, please feel free to sort of, sort of raise your hands and ask. So I will first start with Harish. Harish, you have a very varied experience. You have lived in America for such a long time, which is of course the mother of franchising, and then you are now based in Asia and working with sort of homegrown Asian concepts and taking them outside their home country. So according to you, Harish, what are the sort of basic, what's and whys of a brand sort of, stepping out of its home country, and what that sort of means to you?
Thank you. First of all, I think the world has become such a small place that we are totally connected, and any franchise brand should always think about going global. So that's just the basic. However, to go abroad, anywhere, whether you're going from India or another brand coming inside, the fundamentals of franchising have to be in place. Because if your foundation is not strong, then no matter what your aspirations are, your success is not going to be there. And that preparation needs to be done before any brand even thinks about going anywhere. But the dream of going abroad should be there. And the dream of going abroad as a strong franchisor rather than as a Indian franchisor going out should also be an aspiration. Because I believe that gone are the days when people would say, oh, this brand is from this country or this brand is from that country, and you have a different stigma associated with certain countries, saying, oh, if it's from that country, it may not be so good. I think a good franchisor should be the first lesson for all companies before they go outside. Then they're going outside as a good franchisor rather than I'm an Indian franchisor going out. So I don't know if I correctly answered your question.
No, I think, thank you so much. I'll now request Anton. Anton, I think you run a brand which is part of one of the most competitive industries, QSR, and, coming out of Finland, how do you see global expansion, especially in a competitive industry like, QSR, from your perspective?
Okay, thank you. I worked more than 17 years in franchising, mostly for American brands, for Nike, for Burger King, Texas Chicken. So I have something to compare with Hasburger. And I can say, yes, I absolutely agree with Harish that expansion, this is something what company must do early or sooner or later in development. And of course, franchisor should be 100% prepared for expansion. But one day you should decide that, okay, we going to have expansion, we going to launch franchisee in different countries. And it's necessary for you to make this step, number one. Different companies come to this decision different times. Nike came to this decision after several years after opening. In Hasburger, they spent 30 years just to make this decision. But anyway, this is a way for all companies who want to be global, because you should have this conflict between probably some domestic interest and global interest, and this conflict will lead you to changes. Changes lead you to adaptation, and adaptation makes you alive. That's all. Thank you.
I think that's very valid. Is the change, because change is the only constant thing. Mr. Luca, you sort of head a brand which is a sort of a market leader in its sort of category, and it's a specialized brand, So how a brand coming out of Italy, when you look at going, global, how do you see and what makes you sort of now say that, I'm in 15 countries, I want to go to another sort of 20, 25 countries. So how do you see, as from a brand coming out of Europe, when you sort of look at global markets?
Thank you. Our brand is coming from Italy, and Italy is not the country of franchising. maybe it's a country that create a lot of ideas, a lot of product, but then other, country like US take chance and opportunity from it. Yogurino is a case that 25 years ago started from a little store in Verona, and the founder, after a few years, decided, after opening 10, 15 stores in Italy, to expand, to start to expand in other countries. Today, Yogurino is in more than 20 countries. We have almost 10 master franchisees. We are looking for more. And our mission is not so easy because it's Italianity is very easy to find everywhere. If you go around the stands, you find the Italian flag, Italy, Italy, Italy. But most of these names are not really coming from Italy. So what we want to spread around the world is the real quality that a customer that comes to Florence or Venice or Milan can feel in a store. So this is our mission. So it's a mission that is global. It means it's not just like to have a good product. It's like to have a good image, a good store, a good training for all the people, the workers that are inside. And we reach this, with years of effort and trials and changes. And in the last year, we also had a joint venture as Yogurino as a franchisor and a manufacturing company that has over 30 years experience. So they joined together. So today we can really go around the world and bring a full package that is our image, our experience, but also behind the right product that is controlled by us till the first day that the factory produced, because the factory, our offices, our logistic is in the factory that produce this product. So this is how we see our expansion in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luca. Jim, I think you are the only non-food guy on the panel. I'm glad. And again, you represent the fitness industry, part of service industry. So, you have sizable numbers in the UK and you have some presence in Europe. So you're in India. What makes you as a brand sort of look at India market and why?
Thank you. I really think that our brand is already global. Even although it operates largely in the UK, most of my franchisees are immigrants, people who've come from other countries to the UK seeking opportunity. And we've grown the brand in the UK through their endeavours, through their passion for business. So coming to India is a natural extension of what we do already. We will bring franchisees from the UK back into this country. So we're going to bring their experience from our domestic business. And we're going to allow them to help us develop globally, but locally as well. So it's a bit of global we're looking at in terms of developing our business. The brand itself is cross-cultural. It's not something that doesn't span into every community in the world. And our collateral are human beings. So we've got a commonality in every culture in the world. We don't, for instance, breach any covenants that might exist in countries where hamburger chains might have a problem in terms of people in these countries not being able to eat their particular food. But everybody is into health. Everybody likes the idea of feeling good and looking good. And it's a very young industry to be in. India will have the largest population of young people in the world for the next 20 years. It has 1 billion people already, perhaps 1.3, I think I read yesterday. So we have a broad range of opportunity here. And I don't actually believe that it matters where you come from I think what you need is a strong passion for what you do.
Sure, Jim, and I think that is something which I didn't used to hear. Let's say like even 5 years back, but I'm hearing this more often than not. The brand and the investor sort of exchange is not sort of a one-way street. It's actually it's actually a double street. So investors in India, and then now Indian sort of investors abroad are now sort of investing in India. I think that is something which should sort of create a lot of sort of mobilization of international brands in India. And Jim and Luca sort of mentioned a very sort of a pertinent word in international franchising and international business development, and that is of partnerships. I think we are talking franchising here, and having partners, is a very integral part of when we are taking our brand sort of out of our home countries. So I think with the panel, if you can I can have your inputs on first how do you see these partnerships? In terms of like what kind of partnerships on the profile side and on the capability side. That's one. And the second is there are a lot of sort of terminology which is master franchise, area development, region franchise, multi-unit. So what's according to you, what has been your experience in terms of exchanging and experiencing these partnerships, and how a company at the end of the day looking at sort of international franchise should look at partnerships? Harish?
I think this is probably the most important question, because at the end of the day, it's business between people. And franchisors have an obligation to ensure that it's not someone that is excited about the brand and has money that's the right fit, but rather there are other aspects such as alignment with your vision, your values of the organization, the culture, that there's comfort there, because on the long term, that's what's going to sustain the relationship. But coming down to at a strategy level as to what is the right approach, in my personal belief, I think the days of master franchising as it was known are gone. Okay, I think that's a concept that started out of the US, lasted for years and years, and while some companies may still do so, I think more and more franchise companies are going away from that kind of a model, because the risk, unfortunately, lies all with the franchisor in the event the master franchisee does not perform, which, at least in what we see, over half the master franchisees don't perform to the expectations of the franchisor. So in our case, with the 3 brands that we have, only one is in F&B. We do have a couple of service brands. We actually have to look at the strategy of what is right for that business, right? So our Pure Nectar, which is a cold-pressed juice brand, in that case, we look at the approach of a metro area franchisee that we tend to label as area developer, right? But for our brand, we have a Gravity Extreme Zone Adventure Park brand out of the US that we handle. And there we actually do a single unit franchise globally. Because for that particular business, that's what makes sense, rather than giving any multi-unit, etc. Now, we also have a brand from Argentina that does mental toughness training for athletes. And in that case, we actually do a licensing arrangement rather than even a single unit. So while a single unit option is there, we tend to go with the license. So I think the brands are becoming more in tune with what is going to be best for the brand to grow, rather than a general strategy. And from country to country, it may also vary. Like in some countries, in terms of Pure Nectar, we actually like to take some of our fees and convert them into equity into the brand in that local market, because then it gives us a certain sense of control. So I think approaches are changing, and I think it cannot be a general thing of a master license.
Okay, thank you. For me, there are several parts. Probably one strategy in terms of development. In terms of development, I believe that you should have this structure, this partnership, what is better for local partner and for you as a brand. In some countries, you can have exclusive master franchisee with possibility for sub-franchising. For example, like we have in most Europe countries. In some countries, you cannot have exclusivity. For example, in India, a very big country with the biggest population. And of course, here, we, for example, in Hesburger, we're looking for several exclusive franchisee with possibility for sub-franchising to attract as more possibilities and opportunities and little franchisee as it possible. In some countries, we go in real partnership with our partners, for example, 50-50, like it works in Russia. In some countries, we give just non-exclusive franchising. So it depends from country to country. It depends from your partnership, from your goals, from goals of your franchisee, and etc. In terms of operation, I think main point is you should deal with franchising, with franchisee stores as you deal with your own stores. I mean, you should spend your passion, you should spend your time, you should spend your money to make them best. As soon as you deal with them like as it is, franchisees start to close restaurants or stores or something else. So main point, unfortunately, yes, in your own restaurants, of course, you can dictate some rules, you can hire and fire people. In franchising stores, of course, you cannot do it. So you should spend all your passion, but with respect to your partners.
And Anton, I think that's, so what I'm getting from you is that there is no set formula, right? So you're using, depends upon the country, depends upon the strategy. In your experience, when you do pure franchising on international side and when you are doing, let's say, this joint venture, according to you, what has been sort of more effective overall for the brand?
I don't have best recept, to be honest. Probably, I like acronyms, poor preparation, prevent the performance. So you should be 100% prepared. In this case, you will have best solution.
Sure. Mr. Luca, how do you see the partnership side of franchising?
Thank you. As we in our original country, domestic country, Italy, we have basically only single franchisee, where we have over 100 stores. Outside in the world, we have a master franchisee. Is a mission, I think, the relation with our partners, because as Anton say, it's very important the passion you put in this work and the relation that you create, because in our case our logistics is important. I mean, our store, because we say that we want to bring, in our case, quality, it takes work. It's very easy. It's very easy model. We can coach and learn and teach in a short time, but it takes people that drive it with passion. We prepare our fresh product in all the laboratory, in the kitchen, around the world every day. So you need people that supervise and take care that all the products are ready and fresh and good to eat. So in this way, of course, you need the location. That is the first point. But when you have a good team and a good location, then you can have a success story. But behind your partner that is somewhere in the world has to be committed with you. And for this, you need to also give him a lot. You cannot only take fee or royalty, but you need to give him a lot in terms of passion, in terms of assurances, in terms of building financial model that works. In the case of India, I think that, as Anton say, the model is to have multiple master franchisee for the region, because it's so big, such a big country, that you need to have a control that cannot be centralized. And in our case, that our product is a high-end product, you can only focalize on specific city or region of India, and your target is limited out of this big country of 1.3 billion. So, as we say, it's a matter of adapt the strategy to the country, that where in this way you can have optimize your investment and your partner investment that can then satisfy the customer. And this is, I think, the best recipe. Thank you.
I hear my colleagues giving very good, sound advice. My advice on partnering is that in the end, most partnerships fail. And we developed our brands based on the strategy or the mission statement. And it's a very simple one. It just says, where you belong. So when you're expanding into international territories, I'm looking for people that belong in my company, because there is nothing for sale. I can't sell you a master franchise. I can't sell you a regional principal franchise. I can't sell you a franchise. I need to know that you want to become part of my enterprise. If you want to become part of my enterprise, you become a partner, but you didn't buy that partnership. You became a partner because you wanted to be there. And I find that that is possibly, it puts me in the dating agency business, really, because I'm interviewing people regularly to find out who they are, what their aspirations are, and how they want to take my brand and make it into a much bigger entity.
And Jim, according to you, because what works, in the master franchise side, like, you would ideally partner with somebody who comes with the experience, like, existing players, or like, somebody who would want to invest as a new concept.
Yeah, and throughout my life, I've been given opportunities. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today had it not been for the fact that I was given an opportunity when I was 14 years old. And I tend to look at my partnerships or my business relationships as opportunities. Some of the best franchisees, some of the multiple franchisees, some of the regional and master franchisees have come from cleaning the floors in one of our health and fitness clubs. Opportunity is the single best driver of enterprise. And if I can offer opportunities to people who perhaps don't have the wherewithal, they may not have the money, they may not be able to buy into my business. That's why I sell nothing. I find that I get a groundswell of interest and passion for what we do. So if you came to me with $1 million tomorrow, I'd tell you you couldn't buy any part of my business.
Sure, that's very important. Luca, how do you see, would you ideally partner with somebody coming with the experience? What in your experience works for a brand like yours?
I was listening to Jim, and I was agreeing 100%.
Okay.
I think that it's true. Some of franchising group come from a founder. A founder is a person, as a soul, a philosophy, and then when also the company grows, the philosophy remains. And if someone join externally from another country or from, someone that wants to invest, it's true that you don't need, it's not the priority, the money that he has. You need to share this philosophy. As in a company, when you hire someone can be very good employee in another company, but maybe it's the wrong person in your company because he doesn't share the philosophy, he doesn't have good relation in the team. And in this is the same with, maybe is more important in franchising, because you are not just a relation of owner-employee, but is something more personal. Every single franchisee, every single master franchisee is a person that share with you a step, a process, and there is nothing in the middle. You can cut the contract anytime. So it's has to be a win-win situation, and as the customer has to be chosen, and the franchisee has to choose the franchisor, and vice versa. And this comes from a process. Thank you.
Anton, in your experience, partnering with the guys existing, let's say, in the food business, or giving the rights to somebody who sort of is the, let's say, first timer in the industry, what would be your feedback? What's the ideal way for your brand and for your industry?
Okay, probably it happened a long time ago. In QSR, quite easy to know all basics about business. To train team member, you just spend 2 weeks. To train manager, you spend 1 month. To have good operation manager, probably half year. So this is possible to have absolutely new franchisee from different direction, from different businesses, and they can be very successful in QSR. I have a lot of examples in this case. And same time, you can find somebody from this business with already some background, sometimes negative background, who will make mistakes and blame you about it. So question is about, once again, about your passion, about your own decision. How much time you're going to spend and how long you're going to do it. Because as soon as you stop support your franchisee, they stop to follow your rules and stop to deal with you. Cool. Okay. Even mosquitoes come to franchising, yes.
Sure. Harish, quickly, your feedback on the...
I think the experience part is secondary. The first part really is that do you and the company see eye to eye on the culture, the values, the philosophy? And I think most prospective franchisees approach this the wrong way because they think it is natural to start asking questions about money and how much money will I make and ROI. And while those are important questions, the questions that get unanswered or never get asked are, how do you do business? What is the relationship you want with your franchisees? And as a franchisee, am I comfortable with that culture that I can thrive in that culture? Because if you cannot thrive in that, doesn't matter how good the business is, there's always going to be conflict, right? So you have to see eye to eye on how the business is to be done. But those questions, in all my years, is very rarely I'll find someone that actually starts asking you such questions to say, hey, how do you want to treat, what's the relationship you want with me as a franchisee? What is my role in this success, right? And it always starts with the money and somehow it ends there. Even though franchisors are trying to put everyone through a process, the other side always feels like they're buying something. You're never buying and selling in franchising. You're being granted a franchise for a limited time period to operate in a certain manner. And so you have to be comfortable that you are willing to be in that environment.
Sure. And just in my experience, I've never closed a deal if the person was only looking into Excel sheets. I think that's one of my rules is like, if the first point of contact is you're asking Excel sheets, I know that it's not going to happen. So I think I somewhat agree. So actually, we have multiple topics to cover, but time is limited, as we all know. I know you guys must be hungry. So I will now open the floor for questions and then try and see if you have any questions. Anybody? I think then we must have done a great job.
Are people hungry?
Yeah, I think the blood sugar level must be low. So I hope this was helpful, whether for you or for somebody or any brand or any sort of entrepreneurs you think their brand would have validation outside. Any sort of questions you would want to take on the side, we're more than happy to answer. And at the end of the day, I think franchising, in my experience, although I'm biased towards franchising, have not seen a better strategy than franchising to really expand your brand and take it to places where you can't even imagine. So we hope that some of you would take some key points back home. And thank you so much for the panel. I think we have a very interesting panel, and they have been very sort of open about their experience. So thank you so much. And yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to be requesting Venus to please present the mementos to the panel members as well. A very, very interesting discussion, and just what we required before we headed for lunch. That's right, sir. All right, so first up, I'm going to request Venus to present the memento to our speaker, Mr. Anton.
Another diploma. Thank you.
To Mr. Luca. To Mr. Jim. And to Mr. Harish. Well, I'm going to request you all to come together for a group photograph as well. Right over there, that's right. And meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, the scheduled break is for 45 minutes or 50 minutes. We hope to resume our next session by 2 p.m. And we're going to be talking a lot about money. That's what the Money Summit begins at 2 p.m. So please proceed to hall number 7, first floor. I repeat, hall number 7, the first floor. Grab your lunch and let's see you all at 2 p.m. Thank you. Also, please take care of your belongings. Thank you. I repeat, only the lunch is being served in hall number 7. The next session will begin here at 2 p.m. Thank you.